The discovery of fire, the invention of the wheel, the invention of hand tools for many different uses. This is what you usually hear when people discuss the greatest inventions of mankind, but what also belongs on this list is Doom. Doom was invented long ago, was reinvented several times, and now has been reinvented once again. People say don't reinvent the wheel, but I ask, why not? What if that wheel could be a shield that's also a chainsaw? This is just one of many ways that this game reinvents the wheel, and today, we will look at them all. Now, the title of the video is Doom, A Dark Age Odyssey, not just for the 2001 A Space Odyssey footage that worked for this intro and that feels oddly similar to the game at times, but also because this game is an odyssey. It's a journey to places we've never been, with tools we've never used, and against demons we've never faced. So join me as we take a journey together into the Dark Ages. If you were to take the gameplay of Doom Eternal and mixed in the projectiles of Returnal, and then mixed in the parry from Cuphead, you get Doom the Dark Ages. The parry is the new mechanic that really defines this game, and that parry can be altered to send out a shockwave, or a rush of daggers like the Glint Blade Phalanx from Elden Ring. Instead of daggers, you can activate an auto turret on your shoulder, or summon a lightning strike that stuns enemies and can chain to multiple enemies. This was my favorite parry variant, as it was so satisfying seeing it string across a wave of enemies, and was fun trying to see how many enemies I could stun at once. All of these parry options can also be upgraded, which of course is appreciated. Now, your shield is what makes parrying possible, which is just one of the many things the shield makes possible in this game. You can use it to block damage, but also use it to cover ground. How quickly you can cover ground is astounding, and it's so much fun to zip around, leaving a flurry of blood and limbs in your wake. You can also throw the shield, which can devastate shield-carrying fighter enemies while also replenishing your health. It's not important, but I like that blowing up metal shields gives you armor in this game, as it just makes more sense compared to lighting people on fire giving you armor in Doom Eternal. Also, there's an upgrade that allows the shield toss to go headhunting after hitting a plasma shield, which is just satisfying to watch. The shield can also bounce off of surfaces and kill enemies on the way back to you. You can get a lot of entertainment out of this shield, but the most entertaining thing to me was throwing the shield at heavy enemies and just watching it eat, like a Kung Lao fatality. It's so good, and can also catch heavies on the way back to you as well. Who would have thought that Doom would be the best Captain America simulator we've ever seen? Melee weapons are another new addition in this game, and they can be upgraded like our shield and parries can. The melee options are the Power Gauntlet, which is your starter melee weapon, the Mace, which instead of having 3 charges has just 1 charge at a time that unleashes a powerful swing, and the Flail, which was my favorite melee weapon as I preferred having multiple charges compared to the single charge of the Mace, and there's just something so badass about swinging a flail around. A melee strike also awards you with ammo for all your guns, which lays out an architecture of aggression that rewards you for staying on the offensive. We of course have a full arsenal of weapons, with most of the weapons being split into 2 so-called classes that share the same ammo but are different guns. The arsenal in this game features guns both old and new. The thing that's nice about the recurring weapons is that they feel new, thanks to the upgrade tree that changes the effects of each weapon, like the shotgun having an armor-generating fire effect added to it like the flame belch from Eternal, or the rocket launcher getting a juiced-up shot after a parry. Some of the weapons have decisions you can make in the upgrade tree, and others don't, but even just that little bit of customization had me satisfied. The super shotgun of course makes a return, and while it didn't have any groundbreaking upgrades, it feels wonderfully powerful, and the new reload animation is amazing. Feeling like the T-800 immediately catapulted this to my second favorite iteration of the super shotgun, only behind the original in Doom 2. We have a couple weapons that are kind of new, like the accelerator, which is really just the plasma rifle with the heat burst mod from Eternal, but with a different feel to it. And we have the shredder, which is this game's assault rifle, but it really feels like its own thing thanks to the pincushion upgrade, which is so cool. Accumulating nails in an enemy and then sending them flying out into other enemies is so sweet both functionally and visually. We get a handful of new weapons. The grenade launcher is new to Doom as far as mainline campaigns go, but looks pretty boring and didn't do anything too exciting to keep me using it, but bouncing shots can be fun. On the other end of the spectrum, we have this beauty that I fell in love with the moment I saw it in that first trailer, seeing that it crushes skulls into ammo, and then finding out it's called the Skull Crusher Pulverizer is so stupid, I love it. Maybe it's just me, but my issue with this gun is that I actually didn't use it much at all after the point where we got its variant, the Ravager, which is the same thing but with a tighter spread of skull shards. The Pulverizer can take out waves of fighter enemies really nicely with its wide spread, but so can your shield bash, so the Ravager just felt more useful to me, particularly once you got it upgraded. Either way, watching the skulls getting turned into ammo weapon never got old for me, and it was so cool to see the charged up skulls call back to the skull keys from Doom 2016. This preference of one weapon class over the other also applied to the plasma guns for me, where once I got the cycler, I never went back to the accelerator. The cycler I thought was more fun to use as it electrified enemies, which paired nicely with my electric parry, and I just wanted to use it as it felt fresh compared to the accelerator, which felt just like the plasma rifle from Eternal. The same went for the shotguns, where I basically never used the standard shotgun again after getting the super shotgun, but that's just the allure of the super shotgun for you. A weapon that I did enjoy using both variants of is the shredder that we already looked at, which can be switched into the impaler. This gun shoots railroad spikes one at a time, and as advertised, it impales larger enemies or can rip straight through multiple fighter enemies with a single shot. This gun felt super satisfying to use. It felt great when you nailed the arc on a distance shot, and I really fell in love with it after this shot here where I pinned an enemy to the wall way in the distance. Taking the heads off these Hell Knights one after another was also very satisfying, and I loved seeing the impaled spikes sticking out of enemies like this. So sweet. Last but not least for the weapons is the chain shot. I absolutely love this thing. Look at it sending bodies flying, and then I hit an enemy way in the distance and also get one on the way back. It's so much fun. A fully charged shot feels so powerful, and the upgrade that charges your next shot after a parry will have you absolutely ripping, even against stronger enemies. While I don't really love the look of the weapons in this game as they're pretty bland looking to fit with the Dark Medieval theme, I love the arsenal in this game in terms of function, and I think it might be my favorite arsenal out of any Doom game. Most of the weapons felt viable. I wasn't switching much in contrast to Eternal. It feels like this was a great response for the people who didn't like the switching or feeling that they needed to use a certain weapon against a certain enemy in Doom Eternal. In the Dark Ages, I could go 20 minutes straight of using the weapon that I was feeling at the time, and then maybe switch to another gun for 20 minutes. That may be a problem for some, but I was enjoying myself. I also love that we feel like a weapon ourselves as we drop in like a wrecking ball and kill fighter enemies sheerly by the impact of us landing. You can really feel the weight of your movements with how you drop in like this, and even just with the sound of your footsteps sounding like a bowling ball bouncing along our path. There is one more gun I almost forgot to mention. That is the Ballistic Force Crossbow, or BFC. I will say the explosion of the BFC shot does look awesome, but the look of the gun itself is nothing to write home about, and the weapon's introduction was nowhere near as cool as the Mission Impossible intro for the BFG in Doom 2016, or the Blow a Hole in Mars intro for the BFG in Doom Eternal. The reason I almost forgot to mention it is that I did not use it once after the first section where they surround you with ammo for it to suggest you should try it out. I think that was partially a me problem, where I tend to keep things like this in my back pocket for a rainy day that never comes, like carrying 100 potions in Skyrim that I have never used and probably never will. But I also think this speaks to the game not being super difficult. Finishing Doom Eternal on Ultra Violence had me very satisfied with the amount of challenge, whereas Doom the Dark Ages, I was feeling like I should give Nightmare a try. Now, I don't see this as a huge problem that Eternal felt harder. If you just continue to make games more and more difficult, you end up with the promised consort Radahn, who was the obnoxiously difficult final boss in Elden Ring's DLC. And this is a new combat system, so you don't want to lose people by making them learn a new system while also making it super hard. And if it felt too easy, you just gotta bump the difficulty up. Alright, it's time we talk about the enemies. We have a cast of fighter enemies similar to Doom Eternal, the highlight for me being the Imp with his badass long gray hair and a nice strip of white fur down his spine. I can't get enough of this Imp, he looks like such a beast. We also have the stronger Imp Stalkers, who have an invisible variant. I thought it was cool that you couldn't lock onto them for a shield bash while they were invisible, but you can bring them to light with a nice shield toss. I also love the use of them in this dark forest. They looked at home here and extra creepy. Hell Knights are not looking too different from the past couple games. They do have an armored variant though that you will have to blast the armor off of. Arachnotrons also don't look too crazy and also come with an armored variant like the Hell Knight. Third of this trio is the Mancubus, who has an armored variant and also doesn't look too different from recent versions, but I loved this clip of him yelling in my face. Man, that is one terrifying frame. I do feel like the Doom 3 Mancubus would have fit more into this world with his tentacled face, but what are you gonna do? Another enemy who gets an armored variant but who has changed drastically is the Pinky. The Pinky is no longer bipedal and is now mounted by a rider who you take care of first before taking out the Pinky itself. I thought this was a brilliant evolution for the Pinky that fits the battlefield-like arenas we'll find ourselves in. Lost Souls make a return without their buddies, the Pain Elemental. The Whiplash and their slippery ways are back after being introduced in Eternal. I love how they shoot these crosses at you that can be parried, and they have this wretched, witchy look going that fits this game's vibe very nicely. Maker Drones also make a return. A headshot no longer delivers the confetti of resources like in Eternal, but I did happen to headshot 4 of them with one impaler shot, which was totally lucky, but felt amazing. A returning enemy that is barely recognizable is is the Kako Demon. I did not have much fun fighting them, to be honest, but I gotta tip my cap to them for this insane design they came up with here. Another barely recognizable enemy is the Baron of Hell, which is now the Cosmic Baron. With the look of the Cosmic Baron, I couldn't help but picture the shark enemy from Resident Evil Revelations, which is an enemy design and game that I really like. In terms of gameplay, the Cosmic Baron is usually hyper aggressive, which was overwhelming at first until you settle in and realize you just gotta wait to string some parries together. I found this satisfying, waiting for the right time to strike after some parries. The same goes for the Cyber Demon. It's funny going back to look at clips from earlier in the game like this, where I really didn't have a strategy against the Cyber Demon, and then fast forward to later in the game where I'm just right up in his gut dismantling him with parries. This type of wait to strike gameplay is what I did not like about the Marauder in Eternal, but that's because it felt out of place in Eternal. That type of combat feels right at home in the Dark Ages though. A new enemy is the Acolyte, which is kind of like this game's version of the Archvile, but is honestly more like Doom 2016's Summoner, with how they move elusively, and they also do some summoning with these decoys. But stick them with the shield, and we can get a good look at them. As is tradition, I gotta let the audience know that the Revenant is my favorite enemy in the franchise, and dear God, he looks so sick in this game. I gotta run this back. He comes up arms crossed like he just came out of a coffin. This popped into my head with the arms crossed, and I just had to make this terrible album cover. The Grim Reaper look is a match made in heaven for my boy. He shoots heat-seeking skulls at us instead of rockets, which is perfect. And he goes ghost mode on us, becoming invulnerable until we parry a skull back at him. This feels sacrilegious to say, but I think this is my favorite Revenant design. And that says a lot coming from me. Moving along, there are some new wrinkles that help keep enemy encounters fresh. We have morale encounters where you need to clear out all the enemies in the area to lower the purple bar at the top of the screen before you can take down the leader of the area, who in this case would be the Cyber Demon with the shield around him. We have leaders who have the banner over their head and who empower nearby demons until you take out the leader. I love that they would have a formation of shields protecting the leader. It was just cool feeling more like you're on a battlefield with strategic placement of troops. There are also these upgrade encounters where there's an empowered enemy who upon defeat will award us with an ammo, health, or armor upgrade, and they will also provide us with these heart-crushing glory kill scenes every time. As we approach further into boss territory, we have a few new enemies who are introduced like a boss, but become recurring enemies. This would include the Komodo, who looks like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles villain, the Agadon, whose species later became the Doom Hunters in Doom Eternal, and the Vagary, which shares its name with the spider enemy in Doom 3, and that I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing right. They all brought something different to the table, with the highlights for me being the Komodo's lunge attack, the Agadon's long wind-up attack to mix up the tempo, and chasing down the Vagary's parry rocks. Now for legit boss battles. We start off against the Creed Maker. I love the look of the Creed Maker, and as soon as we saw him in an early cutscene, I thought, man, I hope he's a boss battle. So, I'm happy to have that be delivered. In Phase 1, he throws a nice light show at us and some different attacks until we take it outside for Phase 2, where we get a fascinating reveal of what's under the hood for the big dog. We get a crazier light show for Phase 2 and some new attacks to dodge. We chip away his sluggish exterior to reveal his true form and then give him the gruesome end that he deserves. For our second legitimate boss battle, we have a fight against the main antagonist, Prince Azric. This is a multi-phase fight that starts with him sending these blood priests at us that are slow as molasses, but I dig the look. Prince Azric gets mad when we draw blood on him.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
So then he spreads his wings and starts pulling spikes out of the ground. Something upsetting happens during a cutscene after Phase 2 that has us fired up for a round 3. This would be the most interesting phase of the fight, with him finding new ways to fire blood at us. We take him down, but he's not finished, as he escapes back to Hell, where we will face him one more time in the final chapter of the game. This time he has the Witch by his side. The Witch is someone else that as soon as we saw her early in the game, I hoped we would fight her. And we do get to fight her alongside Azric, but she doesn't last very long as we toss her to the side and then continue on for another mano-y-mano round against Azric. And this time it's truly mano-y-mano without him spawning any blood priests to come after us like last time. We take him down, and he's not getting away this time. I'll be honest, the final boss was not satisfying for me. I think because the previous fight against Azric had more phases and more interesting attacks, so the final fight felt underwhelming. Apart from the fights themselves, they were all crammed in at the end of the game. I would have liked to have had a boss fight around the halfway or 2/3 mark, but I suppose that's what the champion fights were for. I should mention that there was technically another boss battle before this, but it just barely felt like a boss battle to me since it was a mech fight, and it really didn't feel that much different than every other mech fight in the game. This fight against the old one was also in the penultimate chapter of the game, so we played 19 chapters without a boss battle, and then had all of them in the last 3 chapters, which is head-scratching pacing if you ask me. I had a feeling I wasn't going to care for the mech stuff, and that's exactly what happened. It's just not exciting, it's relatively slow and repetitive, you just dodge and punch, and then you get a gun and all you do is shoot. There's just no nuance, there's very little strategy, creativity, or excitement in the mech combat. The sections were short enough that they didn't ruin the overall game for me, but I honestly think the game would have been better off without them. I do like to give id Software credit for trying new things though, and every once in a while you may try something that doesn't quite work, which I will take over complacency. As a sidebar, I need to shout out Armored Core 6 for being an incredible game that has the best mech combat I've experienced personally. I figure most of you watching already know this, but in case you didn't, that's an easy recommendation if the Dark Ages had you yearning for some good mech action. The other entirely new gameplay sequences in this game are the dragon sequences. I did have more fun with the dragon sections compared to the mech sections, but they still were not a highlight for me. I like how they more naturally incorporated the dragon into the flow of the mission by boarding ships and then jumping back onto the dragon, instead of the mech where it was just like, this is mech chapter. I had fun with the dogfights that I guess would be more appropriately called a chase than a fight since they just run away, but I grew up playing Star Fox 64, so anything that reminds me of that is good in my book. The rest of the dragon combat is just you hovering and then dodging attacks until a parry dodge comes, then you do more damage. They at least mix up the attacks you need to dodge by throwing different shapes at you, but that's about all there is to it. I felt there definitely could have been more here, but I figured the developers can't make these sections too difficult or too involved since they are not what people are here for, and you would lose people if they were getting frustrated during these sequences, which may have happened anyway, but not for me. Again, I respect them for trying something different, but hopefully we leave mechs and dragons in the Dark Ages. Alright, I think it's about time we talk about the environments. In terms of where it takes you, this game is full of surprises. We start off with some really nice stormy vibes, with this particular area making me feel like I'm at the Battle of Normandy, which is not nice, but it looks good. The lightning and atmosphere is excellent, as are the crashing waves. I love this pentagram horizon, which sounds like it should be the name of a metal band. Mother Nature really gets to shine in this game, with the storms, and I also really love the trees in this game. With some tree branches looking like creepy bony fingers, and this tree growing around a skull with the roots on the left looking like a creepy hand crawling out towards us. Later on, we also get a nice creepy stroll through an ominous forest. Good work, trees. A powerful thing about the environments in this game is the scale and amount of detail we get off in the distance. Particularly when we're dropped into these epic battles with shots and ships flying across the screen while fires are raging in the background. I loved this area. This area looks awesome, and I can't get enough of these shots I took of the Creed Maker statue with his hand up and ships flying overhead. From this angle, the sky is split with dark on one side and light on the other. I can't believe how perfect it looks. And then to the side, we have a giant skeleton also with his hand up doing the pose from John Carpenter's Twitter picture. I love it. In this area, you can also look down and see these specks of people fighting on this bridge, and also off to the right. Just some more unnecessary but appreciated details. We also have some massive scale here with this sword that extends up into the heavens, and then we find ourselves under the shadow of it to really get a sense of the scale, and some actual scale straight ahead. As for details that are right up in your face instead of off in the distance, I loved all these paintings and portraits you can find that are wonderfully done to feel like they fit into this world. And whatever the hell this is that looks so creepy with its two eyes you can barely see a glimmer of. While looking at paintings, I also happened to capture a showcase of why I don't like high FOV. This is the default FOV, and then this is the max FOV standing in the same spot. I can barely pick up on any detail on these paintings with the FOV up, and while higher field of view helps in giving you more peripheral vision in combat, I would rather be able to more easily see details in the world. Alright, it's time for us to drop into... First of all, I love this title card the game uses to introduce us to Hell. As always, they have cooked up a gorgeous Hell, with this epic castle and other wild stuff to look at. There are some great skulls, as is mandatory in Hell, like this beauty with some red vegetation on one side, this one that is presented to us with wonderful lighting, and this skull which has no reason to be this sick as it's just above a window that we throw our shield through. Skulls are always nice, but my favorite thing about this version of Hell is the volcanoes. Seeing these raging volcanoes just got me fired up. They are just absolutely ripping, and I love it. The more fire and lava, the better. Something I loved about Doom Eternal that also applies here is the environments having layers of imagery from the foreground all the way to the background. I thought this clip exemplified that, as well as some nice contrast, which is on display in several areas in this game, and that I always love as a showcase of how proper use of color, lighting, and contrast is nicer to look at than your most cutting-edge graphics. Let's finally make our way to the most memorable areas of the Dark Ages. Yes, that's a giant Cthulhu keeping an eye on us, which felt so surreal in itself, but how about we take a ride on the giant Cthulhu and let him take us to somewhere truly special? At the beginning of this video, when I said this game takes you on a journey, this is what I had in mind. These areas are otherworldly with a Lovecraftian aesthetic, crazy colored skies, and freaky War of the Worlds looking creatures in the distance. This game's Cacodemon feels so at home in these areas, I feel like they should have waited to introduce them here. This was my favorite shot of this part of the game, with this crazy looking head of I don't even know what with a million teeth. And then this area opens up to the most oddly calming visual I've ever seen. with such a nice welcoming purple light reflecting on the water, with the tower reminiscent of a Bioshock lighthouse standing tall. A closer look reveals not a sun or a moon, but what looks like a large eyeball providing light here. And then a nice complementary dash of green on the right to bring it all together. What a sight. There's a ton of crazy stuff to look at here and to interact with. There's also a decent amount of swimming in these areas, which I don't think anyone likes, but at least they make it interesting with things happening in the environment and cool stuff to look at. This here just looked beautiful, I thought, with this marine flora, and we find ourselves interacting with water in ways that defy gravity. There's trippy stuff going on here, as we are truly in another world. And if this wasn't enough of a journey for you, we take a trip straight down the hatch of a Cthulhu and run around his insides. We certainly went places I never could have imagined in this game. Going back to the trippy stuff, the Cthulhu world messes with us quite a bit. In one instance, we suddenly drop into the abyss, having no idea what's happening, free-falling until we finally find ourselves on solid ground. There's also a section where, as far as I know, the hall is never ending if you keep running in the same direction, and then once you finally turn around and start running the other way, you'll eventually find an exit and a little bit of gold for your troubles. And there's this rotating room like we've seen in Silent Hill 2 and other places. This puzzle may be out of place for Doom, but I really enjoyed it. And if anyone didn't feel like messing with it, all you missed out on was a gold chest. There are some other puzzles throughout the game as well that are a bit more simple like we see here, and we see some more uses of our nifty shield. We use our shield for just about everything. That includes combat, puzzles, and platforming. For those who hate the platforming in Doom, I'm sorry there's more of it in this game, but it's not as involved as Eternals, and you don't lose health when you fall off the map anymore, so there you go. We meandered a bit there, but to put a bow on the environments, the last thing I'll say, which is really more about the level design, is that we get these sprawling maps that took me by surprise. These levels are wide open with many paths to get through the area, and made it feel more like a real battlefield to me. Most of the levels are more linear than this, but these levels impressed me with their design, and I'll tip the cap to id once more for trying something different. I mentioned gold earlier, which is what we use to level up weapons in this game, but is only used for early level weapon upgrades. We'll use rubies for mid-tier weapon upgrades, which we find at these sweet looking statues, and we'll use these wraith stones for top tier weapon upgrades, which we also grab off of a sweet looking statue. No notes here really, this weapon upgrade system was fine by me, it was new to Doom, but not really anything groundbreaking in gaming. Once your weapon is fully upgraded, you unlock a mastery challenge, and if you complete the mastery challenge, you get a gold skin for the weapon. Yes, there are weapon skins in this game. The skins aren't anything crazy and are pretty much the same for every gun, but I honestly don't care much about skins, so this didn't move the needle for me in either direction. As for other features in the game, we have our good old difficulty options, but Pandemonium difficulty has been added, and Too Young to Die has been replaced with Aspiring Slayer. We have our end of level stats like always. We have keys and key cards we need to find like always, but these bodies look like they had a chest burster come out of them, which had me like... We also have skull keys, as is tradition, but a new skull we see is the health that enemies drop being skulls. I love this. We have the collectible toys again that we find in secret areas, but with our new cast of characters, of course. Instead of the extra lives that automatically activated in Eternal, we now have sigils that you have the option to activate or not, which is much better if you ask me. Berserk is back, and it now gives you unlimited melee uses, but also lets us use all of our weapons with unlimited ammo, increased damage, and movement speed, so we can just go on an absolute rampage. This is pretty much all of the past Doom upgrades in one. As for Gore in this game, we don't get glory kills to the same effect as in Eternal. We sometimes get these shield saw glory kills that I believe only trigger if it's a death from above. Most of the glory kills just look like this, which had me missing the close-up, intimate, gruesome glory kills from Eternal, but I don't know if they would have been able to top Eternal's glory kills, and a third straight game of these types of glory kills probably would have been stale, so I'm not mad that they mixed it up. But don't get me wrong, we still get some nice gore in this game, like the Impaler making enemies' heads explode with a fountain of blood spewing. This was just a beautifully lit shot of a Mancubus with a cratered forehead from a chain shot and exposed ribs. We get some nice exposed bones and chunks of meat flying just like we did in Eternal. I love that you can leave an enemy armless like this Mancubus who is hilariously defenseless without its arms, just not knowing what to do with itself, while also giving us a good look at its ribs that are not only exposed but also broken. Some really nice detail here. Or you can get an armless Hell Knight who does not let dismemberment slow him down, which I love to see as well. So what about the music in this game? If you're watching this video, I'm sure you already know that this soundtrack was not done by Mick Gordon, who did Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. I think the Mick Gordon soundtracks were special in that there were songs where I thought to myself, I have never heard anything like this before, and even added songs to my Spotify playlist. I did not have that same reaction to the Dark Ages soundtrack, but I still thought the soundtrack was kick-ass. First off, the main menu song is a banger and sets the tone extremely well. That guitar tone is dark and evil, with that sludgy sound reminiscent of early Black Sabbath riffs, but thicker. It's that type of riff that gives you the stank face. There were a couple songs that stopped me in my tracks, like this song with the bass ripping. again with that sludgy sound that I believe fits the genre that's literally called doom metal, and this song that picks it up a bit and rocks some double bass drum. Insane, with the sound of a siren going off as well, which is sure to get you moving on the battlefield. I love how wicked it sounds, and if you watch a video of Finishing Move Inc. who did the soundtrack, they assembled the most evil looking instruments they could possibly find to record this soundtrack with, and the guitar is tuned so low that the top string looks like a jump rope. Like I said, I don't think the soundtrack will stick with me like the Mick Gordon soundtracks did, but I thought the soundtrack was excellent and had my head nodding quite a few times. Alright, so what's the story of this game? There's a demon invasion being led by this demon prince, so the Doomslayer gets sent in. We're sent in by the Makers, who have the Doomslayer on a leash or tether that will self-destruct if we remove it. I love how the Makers look with their arms of light and a wonderful shine on them thanks to these beautiful graphics. I also love the addition of the Creed Maker, who reminded me of Baron Harkonnen from Dune. The Makers are allied with the Betrayer and King Novik, both of whom we met in Doom Eternal. We also get to see the Icon of Sin before he's turned into a monster, and we meet the King's daughter. Eventually the Creed Maker turns on us and sides with Prince Azaric. We become imprisoned by 3 Cthulhus, and to escape, we kill ourselves by detonating the tether in our armor. This is another section I had in mind when I said we go on a journey in this game, as we arrive in the afterlife looking like a zombie, which we can see in our avatar at the bottom of the screen, but even more so if we switch to the old school avatar. Which now is a good time to mention that I love that we have the return of the avatar in the HUD like in classic games, and it's cool that they give us the option for the throwback sprite avatar. As is tradition in Greek and other mythologies, we need to pay the troll toll to progress through the afterlife. Well, the Doomslayer comes up with his own payment plan, and it made me laugh out loud. We get a nice look at our zombie mug as we commandeer the Black Pearl. We go full steam ahead while the squad performs a ritual, and we're back to the land of the living. Because of course, the Doomslayer cannot stay dead. We hunt down the Creed Maker, find out the King's daughter has powers, we hunt down Prince Azaric, we ride off into a hell sunset, and that's the end. Like I always mention, I don't play Doom for the story as I don't think that's the point, so I don't care to be critical of the story. I like the story for what it was, and I think it's safe to say it's the most depth a Doom story has had. The cutscenes that are my favorite are just the ones that make the Doomslayer look badass, which there are plenty. They also do a good job of making Prince Azaric look badass, particularly here, with red lightning shooting out of his hands as he rides quite possibly the sickest ship I've ever seen. And this is a good time to mention that I really like the world they put together for this game, and that's displayed in these cutscenes, where it's dark medieval like we're in the past, but also futuristic. It's an interesting world. Another thing I liked in the cutscenes was how the yellow glow in the Doomslayer's eyes while bound by the Maker's tether was the same yellow glow your avatar would get at the bottom of the screen when you picked up a power-up in the first Doom game. Some other callbacks that are probably really just them reusing assets are these doors that are the same as the door that we took to get into our private quarters on the Fortress of Doom. The wolf statues that guard the Slayer Gate doors in Doom Eternal are the same wolf statues that guard Wraith Stones in the Dark Ages, and that we have to smash to unlock the Wraith Stone. Also, I believe I see a crucible on these pennants here. As for performance, I was seeing online that the game was crashing for people at launch on PC. I played on Xbox through Game Pass the day it came out, and only had one crash on my first playthrough, and then on my second playthrough I had a couple glitches happen, but that was really it. Something I gotta mention before we get out of here, and that I'm sure I'm not the first one to mention, is this game should have been a reboot for Quake. Quake has the dark medieval vibes as we fight in spooky castles against medieval knights, like come on. There are also the Lovecraftian enemies, including the Fiend, that reminds me a whole lot of the Cosmic Baron, and the Cycler looks a whole lot like the Nailgun from Quake. I don't know if there's a story out there already on this, but it just feels like this game was being built as Quake and then was switched to Doom. And it would have been perfect timing to reintroduce Quake as we're starting a new combat system. I figure Quake does not have the name recognition with the younger audience that Doom has, so maybe they fear a Quake game won't sell like Doom, but I don't know for sure. What I do know for sure is I would kill for a new Quake game, but I'm also not going to complain about getting more Doom games. So overall, I had a blast playing this game. There were memorable weapons, moments, and environments. The boss battles weren't my favorite, and I was not very thrilled with the mech or dragon sequences, but the general combat loop I thought was a ton of fun once you get a hang of it, and that's what's most important for me when it comes to Doom. I felt like I was having more and more fun as the game progressed, as I was mastering the combat, and that is a sign of a great game to me. They say comparison is the thief of joy, and I think that applies here, as spending too much time comparing or wishing this game was more like Eternal will rob you of the solid experience that's packed inside of the Dark Ages. I know that's easier said than done, even for me clearly, who compared the two games plenty of times in this video, but I think it's worth mentioning. And funny enough, my next video will be on Eternal, since we gotta go back and cover the DLCs, so here I am going right back to Eternal. But in the meantime, I would love to hear everyone's thoughts on Doom the Dark Ages down in the comments. There were all sorts of discussions going on in the comments on my Eternal video, which was awesome to see, so thank you to everyone who has watched, commented, or shown support in any fashion, and I hope to see you all on the next one. Adios, Doomslayers.